Can you tell me what your name is and where do you work?
I'm Tina Luna and I work in an office in Makati.
Question number one. In your opinion, which among British and American English influenced the Philippines more in terms of its language and why?
Well, I think it's the American English because as you see, the country, the Philippines, has been under American rule for 40 years before early 1930s up to 1940s. So I think the Filipinos have been more influenced with the American language than the British. Because the first settlers, the first people who came here, of course the American soldiers, they brought with them teachers, the Thomasites, who have taught a lot the Philippine young children during that time.
Okay. Question number two. What do you think are the differences between American and British English?
I think the British English is, they pronounce it harder than the American English, which is more Islam.
Okay. Question number three. Why do you think is English such a fundamental factor in communication?
Because English is a universal language. If Latin was the lingua franca during the ancient times, in the modern times, English is the widely used language. Even in the innermost of Africa, even the natives there understand English, and even people in the North Pole, they could understand English.
Okay. Question number four. Can you give an insight on why is English still being either spelled, pronounced, or perceived by other nations like the Koreans in the wrong way, considering the fact that English has a firm and constant structure in terms of grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary?
Well, I think the reason why the intonation, the diction is being compromised because you see, every country has its own dialect, its own native language, and normally, if you're a native, like for example, the Filipino, when they talk when somebody talks to them in English, the first thing is that they process the language, their response in their own dialect. So that's why I think it's the reason why the diction, the intonation affects the way how they pronounce the English language.
Okay. For the last question, why is English the universal language?
Because as I have said, if Latin was the lingua franca, then in the modern world, English has been widely used from North Pole to Africa. It is the universal language and it is the language of commerce. If before the language, the Latin language is the language for the during the Renaissance period, the early ancient civilization, English in the modern world, it has been the universal language.
Thank you for the answers.